stop, Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee.
With the first selection in the first round of the 2010 first-year player draft, the Washington Nationals select Bryce Harper.
Scouting baseball podcast, working on a new intro there. Obviously, three big selections: Dansby Swanson, Michael Trout, as they say, and Bryce Harper. Jeff, who is Mr. Rob Manfred going to be calling first this year?
It really feels at this point like I'd be surprised if it's not Hunter Green. We've both been talking about it from the start. His hype is deservedly feels like it's picking up more and more. It's just the athleticism, the ability. We know what the Twins front office they look like. We know where those previous organizations typically like ceiling, and I know you have talked to people with connections to that organization who seem to love him. So I mean, barring an injury or someone just exploding in a good way, we're pretty much just locking Hunter Green in from now till June, I would think, right?
That's a great thought process, Jeff, and I think something new for today's podcast, a little bit different. We're not going to talk about those first overall guys. We're going to talk a little bit more about those guys that maybe in the second, third round get their name called, maybe even further down the road with a few names that maybe you haven't heard of. Jeff, I know you've been scratching at the bit to talk about a few of these Arkansas arms. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the one I've been screaming about the most, I'll just start there, we'll bury the lead, is Blaine Knight. I think he's not getting talked about because he's a sophomore. And typically, on the whole, I was looking back today through old tweets, and Andrew Benintendi I started tweeting about in April. Now, I should point out, I was one of the first people to talk about him as a draft prospect. I didn't see anyone else really mention him outside of Kylie McDaniel at the time, and that was April. So the fact of the matter that I've been screaming about Knight in March and other people are not isn't too big of a surprise. I did see that PG mentioned him in a tweet. I didn't see what they wrote. What I know about Blaine Knight was he was hitting 97 this summer. He'll be 21 in June. So he's definitely draft eligible. And most impressively to me, he has 5 starts, 26 innings, 34 strikeouts, 1 walk. Currently has the best strikeout to walk ratio. And that type of control, he's a big kid too. Let me pull up his exact. If I was smart, I would have put up his exact size numbers. But just what he has done this year, and as a Friday night starter as a sophomore, 6'3". So he is, that kind of bare minimum for the acceptable height. But his command has been unreal. And I have him. Every time I look at my list, I'm moving him up. I think he'll probably be either 18 or 20. I just can't get him any higher than that. But I've got him over guys like Schmidt from South Carolina, who I've been high on. I've got him over Alex Lang, who I haven't been as high on, but still a guy I think will be a solid pitcher. Will Crow. It's already such a deep class, and outside of maybe Peter Solomon, who's already moved into the pen this past weekend for Notre Dame, most of these arms are performing well. So adding Knight in is an exciting addition because I think he's moving himself solidly into kind of that second tier of arms, which is headlined by Seth Romero. And then the other arm for Arkansas is Trevor Stephan. Not Stefan. You know me in pronunciation. It's never my friend. I heard a report that on Saturday night he was hitting 97 in the cold. I talked to someone who knew him who thought that he would be getting up to 97 once it warmed up. Pick of the Red Sox last year, nearly signed with them. Basically, my theory, and this is not confirmed nor denied, I will say, is that he was a fallback if Groom didn't come together. Guy who was coming to Arkansas, so this is his first year in D1 baseball, and he's dealing. Like I said, he's hitting 97. He's bigger. A bigger kid than Knight. Doesn't quite have his command. Hasn't put up the strikeouts the Knight's put up either. But obviously, like I said, the Red Sox tried to sign him last year. It didn't happen for them. He's actually got so Blaine Knight. If we're just looking straight numbers, 2.39 ERA and 26 innings. He's got 21 hits, 1 walk, 7 earned runs, and he struck out 34. Trevor Stephan, a 1.19 ERA in 5 starts. He has gone 30.1 innings, only allowed 17 hits, 4 earned runs, 8 walks, and 40 strikeouts. So he has been equally as dominant. And Arkansas, they've got some guys who are hitting, but right now, the big reason for why this team is 17-4 right now, kind of I would argue a surprise team, is I would say that might be the best 1-2 draft eligible punch in baseball. I mean, South Carolina is your only other one with Crow and Schmidt. I know some people like other places better. If you're looking at overall talent, maybe Florida with Beto and then Singer, likely a top 10 pick next year. But right now, especially now that we move into SEC play, I can't wait to see these 2 kids go. But I think they're both moving up, and I think they're both kind of in that first round bubble right now. And I like I said, Arkansas is 17-4. That's an amazing record, and it's because they have 2 guys who've been unbelievable.
You brought up a name that I've followed for quite some time, and it's a team that's heading in the opposite direction. You brought up Seth Romero, who currently leads the nation in strikeouts, and in each of his 5 starts, he's recorded at least 10 strikeouts. He has 3 12 strikeout performance games. Really a stellar matchup, but there's 2 guys that kind of came out of the West this last weekend, maybe the weekend before, and you got to see them both at Fullerton. Eli Morgan of Gonzaga has faced 75 hitters over his last 3 starts. He's retired 66 of them and struck out 40 over his last 3 starts. 25 innings. He's just had 6 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 40 strikeouts. The guys on fire, and the scouts are really enjoying him. He sits in the low 90s a little bit, has a really good changeup, flashes a pretty decent off-speed pitch. And another guy that's really entertaining, just had a really good weekend, tying the Cal State Fullerton record with 14 strikeouts, is John Gavin. We got a lot of really great information from a source there. Got 12 swing and misses on his fastball, 7 on his changeup. He went 8 innings, struck out 14, which matched Thomas Eshelman on May 30th, 2015, against a decent New Mexico team. It's not like he was facing the chum.
The guy on the opposite side of that, the other pitcher, is Luis Gonzalez, who very good center fielder and one of the top on-base guys. He had actually given Connor Siebold a good performance, but he was pitching that night.
Yeah, I find him really interesting. I mean, obviously his arm is good in the outfield. He's pitching, but he's not that quality of a pitcher. But he's got a good arm.
It's 94, I believe, maybe 95.
Somewhere around that for a lefty. He's a high contact guy. Flashes power. He's just one of those gamers. Run and pro ball. He's going to be a guy that maybe a third option in the outfield, but he's a really great fallback for an outstanding 4th outfield option, and he could be much higher. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about Luis Gonzalez in that first 3 rounds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Picks.
It'll just be the New Mexico question. Every hitter from New Mexico in that park get their numbers inflated a bit, but has the arm for any spot and then has the speed for any spot. So it's kind of a nice floor, but he's been a on-base machine there.
Jeff, you went and saw Zach Lothar the other week?
I saw him Saturday in a downpour. mix of snow and rain.
How did he look?
According to my gun, I only had him hit. I wrote it all down. He hit 91 once. He was mostly few 90s, but he was mostly about 88, 89. He threw that fastball. I think because of the terrible conditions, he was throwing that fastball about 90% of the time. He was around the zone. It was a really kind of weird game from the perspective of, I'll be honest, I left after the sixth because I was wet, and there's not a lot of great prospects on either side. Lothar is interesting. Ohio State center fielder Trey Gannett is probably their best prospect, and the third baseman for Xavier Ryan, Bananen. Again, apologies to anyone who are friends or family of these people whose names I'm butchering. But if it was a nice day, I would have stuck around. But Lothar ended up going 13 innings because, Ohio State he walked a guy, and then he had an error on a throw to first. Then they sacrificed, and then they hit another sacrifice, and then they got in the run. So he had over 6 innings. He ended up striking out 11, gave up 2 runs, only 1 earned, but on 1 hit. But he did walk a few guys. He's actually in the top 50 guys right now in the nation in strikeouts per 9. He's a nice kind of lefty arm, probably more of a back end type, but lefties are always going to be pushed up boards. I think he's kind of in that second, third round bubble, but it's hard to evaluate a guy. Like I said, if it was not a college game, it would not have continued. Like if this was a pro game, they wouldn't let him play in that. So he's probably having a hard time with his grip. Which is going to make it hard to use his off speed stuff. He was low 40s, he's out, but he is getting that balance out because all the hitters are using metal bats. And I remember my day of playing baseball in the spring in Ohio. And let me tell you, when I played baseball, hitting a 70 mile an hour fastball was no fun with a metal bat. I can't imagine in 90 mile an hour fastball with a metal bat. So, there was some good and bad. It's hard to it's easier to evaluate a pitcher or a hitter in those conditions because if they really excel, then that's like a big bonus. But from the perspective, he didn't really move the needle one way or another. It was a solid performance in crappy conditions. I'm hoping to get actually back down to Columbus this week to see Lucas Gilbreth from Minnesota, who's another left-handed pitcher who's a interesting guy. Big Ten's down this year, so I'm kind of figuring out where I can go, what I can see to make it a little bit better. But he's kind of one of those guys on the radar. Ohio State's way down. It's tied their all-time record for draft picks last year, so it's a program in rebuild.
Going from maybe cold weather to a little bit warmer weather, going down to Texas, there's a kid that you and I have both spoken highly of, but there is a knock, and he turned 19 last month. High schooler, he's 19. It's Alex Sheriff, and he had an outing recently that was just unmentionably good. It's Nathan Rode was down there, great reporter. Make sure you follow Nathan if you get the chance. But Alex Sheriff, 14 strikeouts over a perfect 5 innings. Do the math. He only struck out all but 1. Another guy that had a great game was Joe Adell, Burt Granger of 2080 Prospects. He was there for that. Multiple high school talents really kind of jumping out. Mackenzie Gore, another guy, but a kid that came up in my mind and was brought up to my attention was CJ Van Eyck at a Steinbrenner High School in Florida. Now, of course, Pat Morris is there as well at Steinbrenner, but CJ, 92 to 95 with his fastball. I think some people expected it, some people didn't. Jeff, are there any high school kids that you've kind of been following a little bit that maybe are jumping off the page at you?
My state is a little bit down. There's a kid I hope to see in Columbus, Tyler Brown, who's a Vanderbilt commit. Basically the way Ohio works is Central Ohio is owned by Vanderbilt. Cincinnati is heavily mined by Louisville. Kentucky comes in and gets what's left over between those two programs. And then Ohio State and Kent State try to get what's left. So I don't have this is probably the weakest I've seen the state, and I say that when last year I think the first high school kid from Ohio was picked in the 49th round. So that kid Nick Bennett had a fantastic first start for Louisville. When McCarthy was hurt, he stepped into the rotation for them to watch for down the road. So I don't see anyone too much locally here. The names I kind of have, I was looking at, I have 5 high schoolers in the top 20, which I think more says about how much depth of the college class than anything else. But, the obvious ones are the Joe Adell, Hunter Green, Royce Lewis, DL Hall. Austin Beck is a name that's been rising. He was around last year, but I believe he got hurt. And I mean, he's a legit center fielder. And if anyone's looked at our top 100 rankings, you can see how much we value guys that are very likely to be plus defenders in center. He can run. He's got some loft in his swings. If you type Austin Beck into Twitter, you're going to see some great home run shots. Jock Peterson, when I look at him a bit on a high end. I don't know if that's fair or not. I mean, again, I have to do some research. Garrett Mitchell, we talked about last time, is trending up. And then the last of my high school guys is I'm just a big believer in Blaine Enlow. I like the build. I think he's going to kind of come through. I just feel he's very safe. And my next guy up, I'll say it. Yeah, well, I'll skip my guy at 6, so you can talk about him. 7, I have McConnell, he's down the board a bit. He hasn't done anything. It's just I like tools on a few other guys more. 8's Cole Turney, which is just tools for days. For Rogers, who's another older pitcher, just like Sheriff is, but Rogers is a lefty, so I give him a bit of an edge between those guys. And then for me, it's kind of a tie, really, between like Benito's, Veladdy, Heatherly, Melendez, some of those, Sam Carlson. Like I have all of those guys in a row. So those are, I mean, it's funny because I'm very college heavy, and then after a certain point, very prep heavy. But and that's not even with me being lower on guys like Hans Kraus and Sheriff, as I've talked about before. But I know that my 6th guy is 22 right now on my board is someone that you are high on, and you could probably talk a lot more on, which is Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah, Gore, obviously I don't make it out to Carolina as much as I want to. It's a beautiful place, but being from California, you kind of have the cream of the crop out here, and you hope that you can get the reports. And I have been able to help or get help with reports on Mackenzie Gore from a few friends. Been sitting in the low 90s. Just everyone says he just looks the part. Everyone loves Mackenzie Gore out that way. I think a lot of people are expecting him to be possibly someone that sneaks into that, top 15 talk. He's low 90s lefty, really easy mechanics, outstanding changeup for his age. He's just turned 18, same time Alex Sheriff turned 19 in February there. But there's a few kids out here that are really intriguing me, and some are actually falling, some are rising. Of course, Hagen Danner is one that we always get asked about out of Huntington Beach High School. It seems that every time he takes the field, he hits a home run. Regardless, everyone sees him as a pitcher, but he's just a catcher with pop that has an opportunity.
Said it since the summer. I'm going to stand by it, just like Josh Lowe last year, where I said bat first.
Absolutely.
Stand by it with Danner.
And I think a lot of people out here are starting to agree that he is a bat first guy. But there's 2 names, one a riser, one a faller. Calvin Mitchell. He's down at Rancho Bernardo High School in San Diego region. A lot of people see a lot of Garrett Mitchell in him. I see a lot of Jeff Jenkins in him. But regardless, the kid can hit, and he's going to hit for a long time. Really outstanding hitter. And today he squared up against Kyle Hurt of Torrey Pines High School, a very talented pitcher out this way, but Hurt kind of had a rough day, allowed 4 runs in 4 innings, only struck out 4. Kind of had a rough day, but just a name to watch, Calvin Mitchell, by far out here. Another high school kid that I was just told about that jumping into the second round conversation is Sam McMillan, who has Money High School in Florida. Just another toolsy guy, kind of plays up the middle a little bit. I think overall he might end up as a corner infielder. but one of those guys that the bat is just going to keep carrying them. There seems to be a lot of high school kids that are carrying with the bat. But Jeff, obviously we have a lot more college guys to talk about. Before we went on, Jeff wants to talk about stats. I'm more of a traditional guy. Jeff's a little bit more analytical. So Jeff, talk to us a little bit about Mr. Brendan McKay, who's on a tear right now.
You had a slight cutoff there. Which guy?
You could talk to us about Brendan McKay, possibly.
Oh, okay. Right now I'm getting some reverb. I'm hearing myself on your end.
Oh no, I'll turn you down.
Okay. The fun thing with McKay is he's 4th in the nation in strikeouts per dime. He's just been absolutely filthy and unhittable. And then, it's really early. Stats have a place. I'm not gleaming a ton from it, but I like to look at him all the time. But while he's 4th in strikeouts per nine, Brandon McKay is also 3rd in on-base percentage. He is, I think, as a hitter, we're hearing a lot more talk about that and his ability as a hitter. It's vaguely reminiscent of A.J. Reed a few years ago, who was a lefty pitcher all the way until his senior year. And then he hit I believe the correct total would be a crap ton of home runs and ended up being a first-round pick. McKay isn't necessarily hitting a ton of home runs. He's just, hitting 481. And it takes one team to think that his ceiling is higher at first base than it is as a pitcher for him to end up being tried that way. But, I still would take him as a pitcher. He's such a safe, quick-moving arm who's been pretty much a dominant force since day one. But, him as a hitter, he's got to be the number one just pure player in the country when you look at what he's doing as a composite, as a hitter and pitcher.
Absolutely, I agree. And for me, Jeff, I know we're keeping this a little short. I don't know if you have more that you want to go into. I'm a little bit done with my side on a high school talk a little bit. I don't know if you want to bring out anybody more.
No, going through my list, just kind of pulling some names. You mentioned Calvin Mitchell. He's an interesting guy. I've been kind of back and forth on him. Joe Perez is someone that intrigues me, mostly as a right-handed pitcher. He's kind of focusing on that for the first time. He's 95, 96. It reminds me a lot of Matt Manning a bit last year, where Matt Manning had never really been a full-time starting pitcher until last year, and then came through. Perez is nowhere near the athlete, but that's a similar situation. And just some of those other high school guys, like Cole Brannon, Nick Prado, Connor. I'm still a big fan of Connor Uzelton. It's just there's a lot of prep that more so with the bats. It's interesting. The preps are stronger, I would argue, with the bats. So there's a significant amount of strong arms, but I kind of like the bats more. And then the college group, I think we definitely agree the pitching is stronger. So I really do like this class quite a bit. I think it's, when I look at kind of my first few breakdowns, you're going to be picking 20 and getting a really nice talent. And that's not to say that last year you didn't get really nice talents later as well. But there's guys who are going to go 2021 who would have been in top 10 contention, I think, last year. And, it's been great because it's the first time in a few years where, last year we had Alec Hansen fall apart. The year before that, it was Michael Machuela from Duke. This is kind of the first year none of our top guys are sinking or having issues, and we just see more names rising. So it's a great year to have multiple picks.
Speaking of, the Pittsburgh Pirates have, I believe, 3 picks inside the top 50, 5 inside the top 100. They're going to be really fun, especially when they pick at 12. One guy I will say that is falling off the radar a little bit is J.J. Schwartz of Florida, but we can touch on that in the next podcast. I want to thank everyone tuning in. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold if you can't hear, but I do want to thank you for tuning in. Jeff, we will have a mock draft coming out, our first one of the season. coming out within the closing stages of this month, the closing stages of spring training. You can follow me at Taylor Blake Ward, at Scouting Baseball as well. Jeff, you have anything you want to close out with?
I've got a new trend piece up today. I do talk about John Gavin in that. I talk about Sam Ferragel, who's a 5'10" first baseman who leads the nation in total bases and home runs right now. And I talk about Luke Heinrich, who's really seen a jump in his strikeout rate, an interesting left-hander. So check that out. I'll have reports and video up at some point this week from my OSU Xavier game. And next week, my top 51 big board will drop. So a lot of content and should be a lot of fun. I'll also finish off the top 100 reports this week. So a lot of things coming. Good time to subscribe. A lot of stuff in the pipe, not the pike. Pike is a weapon. A pipe is what things flow through.
Jeff, always a pleasure talking with you. We hope you guys appreciated tuning in and wherever you are, if you're on the road listening in or if you're at home listening in, we sure hope that we gave you a little bit of information towards the draft. Only a few months away. We're going to come out of this with a little bit of relaxation music, and we will talk to you all very soon.